The rolling, pounding sound echoes like thunder in the steppe. The whole land is shaken by a giant waterfall that is sweeping everything forward. But every step forward is a gamble with blood. Because this is not just a migration, but the fiercest battle of life and death on the steppe. Maasai Mara, the bloody migration of zebras on the steppe. In the distance, the rivers meander like blood vessels flowing through the dry steppe. The water surface is as calm as a mirror, but underneath, there are hidden deadly dangers. Where wild beauty blends with the cruelty of nature, turning the steppe into an endless arena of blood and fire. On the vast steppe, a sea of black and white stripes moves like vivid waves. Thousands of bodies rushed forward, their hooves pounding, creating thunderous sounds that echoed throughout the space. That herd of zebras is both a symbol of intense life and a testament to the fragility of the lurking death in Maasai Mara. The black and white striped zebra of the African savanna has an appearance that is both graceful and powerful. With an average height of 1.3 to 1.5 meters, weighing up to 350 kilograms, they possess a sturdy body and a unique striped coat. No individual is the same, like the fingerprints of nature. This pattern not only creates a mesmerizing beauty, but also serves as a perfect camouflage, making predators dizzy in the moving sea of stripes. Thanks to their sturdy hooves, zebras can reach speeds of nearly 65 kilometers per hour and run persistently over long distances. But their true strength lies not in their legs, but in their social behavior. Zebras live in giant herds, hundreds to thousands of individuals, moving as a unified block. When threatened, the entire herd immediately changes direction, turning into a chaotic striped wall that makes it difficult for predators to choose a target. Zebras are also a species rich in survival instincts. Their ears constantly rotate to catch signals. Their eyes, placed on both sides of their heads, help them observe almost 360 degrees, detecting predators from a long distance. To find new land, the zebra herd is forced to face the harshest challenge on the journey, having to plunge into the turbulent water where death awaits in the darkness. But under the murky water, a giant black shadow moves slightly. Cold yellow eyes float on the water, motionless, like two smoldering fires in the darkness. Jagged teeth hide behind the foam, waiting for the moment of explosion. And then, the battle of life and death breaks out. The prey struggled desperately, its legs kicking wildly, tearing up white foam. But the crocodile's frantic swings pulled it around in a deadly whirlpool, crushing its flesh and bones in an instant. The entire river surface was shaken by the frantic struggle. In an instant, the Mara River turned into a red swamp of blood, and the sound of the water splashing mixed with the screams created a terrifying death song. The Mara River still flowed, red with blood and the corpses of the unfortunate ones left behind. But the migration did not allow it to stop. The herd of zebras continued to roar towards the other bank, each body drenched, mud and blood mixed together. Each step onto the new land was a small victory against the harsh nature. Their eyes shone with resilience because they understood that to maintain life, to preserve their species, they had to accept sacrifice. In that fierce journey of survival, the cycle of life continues in places with lush green vegetation. The female zebra is pregnant for nearly a year before giving birth. Miraculously, the foal, just minutes after birth, can stand up on its trembling legs and run after its mother. In the midst of the dangerous savanna, that ability is the only chance of survival. When the calf is born, the whole herd often forms a protective circle, with the adults standing outside to shield it, ready to face predators. The next dawn, the fiery red sun rises from the horizon again, casting a fiery light over the Maasai Mara savanna. After a tiring night, the zebra herd continues its journey, each step imprinted on the grass, still covered with morning dew. But the peace is just a thin veil. In the shade of the low bushes, bright yellow eyes are silently watching every movement. There was no longer a rushing stream, but there was another danger ahead of them. The hunters were silent, patiently waiting for the moment when their prey was vulnerable. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Suddenly, the lion rushed out. All around, the zebra herd was running in chaos. The black and white striped figures passed by in panic, leaving behind a cruel scene. The strong ones arrogantly standing on the corpses of their prey, and lives taken away in the blink of an eye. The nightmare passed. The grassland was once again immersed in a brilliant red and gold light. as if blood and tears had never been shed. The zebra herd continued their journey, each step leaving footprints on the vast grassland. Although many individuals had fallen in the river of death or under the claws of predators, the rhythm of life of the herd never stopped. The sun had gradually set towards the horizon. The red light covered the grassland covered in dust and blood. The roar subsided, leaving only a heavy silence. On the ground, the corpses of the unfortunate lay motionless, becoming the remnants of a life and death battle. But the cycle of life here never ended. From the high above, giant black shadows began to hover. The heavy flapping of wings echoed down, signaling the appearance of the most terrifying corpse scavengers on the steppe, the vultures. From above, dozens of giant black shadows suddenly swooped down, landing heavily on the ground covered in dust and blood. Vultures are the corpse scavenging machines of the steppe. They have a hideous appearance, but hide perfect evolution. With a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters, they glide for hours in the sky. With barely a flap of their wings, their sharp eyes are enough to detect corpses from dozens of kilometers away. The featherless head, the strong and sharp curved beak, is a specialized weapon to tear the flesh, dig out the bones. The vulture's stomach contains extremely strong acid, can digest even deadly pathogens, turning them into a natural barrier to prevent the spread of disease. They do not hunt, but are masters of patience. As soon as the predator leaves, the vulture immediately swoops down, turning the giant carcass into a bare, white skeleton in just a few hours. In the blink of an eye, the giant prey is turned into a bare, white skeleton. Its majestic beauty is now just a remnant, and the cold-blooded scavenger vultures continue to complete their cruel but necessary work in the cycle of survival. The sunlight shines again on the grassland, covering the vast sea of grass with a red glow. A new day begins, but the peace is just a fragile shell, behind which the cycle of survival is ready to explode. From the distant horizon, the earth suddenly shook with a heavy rumble. A huge cloud of dust rose, obscuring the bright sunlight. Heavy shadows gradually appeared, a herd of wildebeest. Hundreds of thousands of individuals follow each other, forming a rolling waterfall of life that stretches to the horizon. The sound of hooves echoes, mixed with hoarse roars, turning the entire steppe into a boiling arena. With a fierce appearance, a large, flat head, sharp, curved horns, a muscular body covered in dark brown fur, the wildebeest has a wild and challenging look. They are not as agile as Thompson's gazelles, nor as flexible as zebras, but they are persistent and fearsomely stubborn. Every year, their migration stretches hundreds of kilometers, crossing dry, burning grasslands, dusty deserts, and finally the bloodthirsty Mara River. It is an irresistible instinct, leaving death to seek life. As the herd of antelopes moves on, a speedy hunter silently locks eyes on its prey. In the distance, in the shade of the short grass, a slender and powerful figure was lowering its body. Its golden eyes locked on the herd of wildebeest calves. It was the cheetah, the fastest predator on the planet. Its muscular body tensed, its long tail gently sweeping the ground to maintain its balance. Not a sound, not a breath, only the deathly silence before the explosion. Then suddenly, it rushed away. A thunderous pounce, its claws dug deep into the prey's body, knocking it to the ground. The chase ended in an instant. The sound of its hooves faded, the dust settled, leaving only the image of the cheetah proudly sitting on the prey's corpse. The herd of wildebeest continued to flee. On this fierce steppe, there was no room for weakness. Every tragic death of a young one fed the predator, and the cycle of survival continued endlessly. Far from the bloody hunt, in the silence of the green grasslands, another cycle of life continues silently. The females carry within them new life, preparing for the birth of the next generation. Because in Maasai Mara, death only paves the way for life, and the reproductive instinct is the immortal thread that binds the wildebeest herd through countless generations. Every year, when the rainy season begins to spread a carpet of green grass on the savanna, it is also the time when the wildebeest herd enters the breeding season. After about 8 months of pregnancy, the female will give birth right in the middle of the vast grasslands with no shelter. The miracle is that the calves, just a few minutes after birth, can stagger to their feet and then limp after their mothers. In a world full of predators, that ability is the ticket to survival. The herd often protects the young individuals by gathering in tight circles, the adults outside to shield, their curved horns ready to fight back if the enemy is too reckless. Although many young individuals still fall, the remaining ones will grow up, join the giant waterfall of life, continue the endless migration journey. In the cycle of life and death, reproduction is rebirth, proving that even if blood is spilled on the grasslands, life never stops flowing. The sun gradually sets below the horizon, dyeing the entire Maasai Mara grasslands in a fiery red light. Here, blood has been spilled, the screams have subsided, but the battle for survival has never stopped. The death of one creature becomes life for another. Every step forward in the migration can be exchanged for blood, but it is also that sacrifice that maintains the balance of the entire vast ecosystem. Will you support the predator to maintain the natural balance, or pity the weak prey? Leave a comment below the video. And don't forget to ring the bell, subscribe to not miss the next wildlife survival series. Bloody Migrations, the race between life and death. A journey repeated for millions of years, where the instinct for survival drives millions of creatures to rush into the most fierce race on the planet. From the icy rivers of the north to the scorching savanna of Africa and the deep waters where the ocean meets the Rocky Mountains, all are in sync. Bloody Migrations. The race between life and death. The far north of the planet, where land meets ice and ocean meets sky. The air is so cold that every breath turns to white mist, and the water shimmers as if covered with thousands of crystal shards. In the midst of this landscape, glaciers roll through snow-covered pine forests, creating silver paths winding between majestic mountains. The sound of water crashing against rocks echoes like the heartbeat of nature, both fierce and regular, signaling the arrival of migration season. Under the cold water, sunlight penetrates each layer of waves, reflecting on the bodies of the red salmon. Salmon are the great travelers of the ocean. For most of their lives, they live in the cold salt water, where deep pressure and fierce ocean currents forge a perfect body for endurance. When the time comes to spawn, their primal instincts rise stronger than any fear. They leave the ocean, starting a journey upstream, thousands of kilometers long, overcoming waterfalls, deep chasms, reefs, and waiting predators. The sound of water pouring through the northern forest resounds like the drumbeat of nature beating the rhythm of the battle for survival. The white waterfall pours down from the high cliffs. The foam sprays up in a mist, covered with cold mist. In the swirling water, a school of red salmon was trying to fight upstream. Each powerful body bent, gathering force from its tail, then jumped up like a living arrow, piercing through the fierce water. White foam splashed. One almost reached the top of the waterfall but was swept back, smashed hard against the rocks, and then disappeared in the midst of the rushing water. The sound of the water mixed with the sound of the wind, creating a fierce harmony of wild nature. And then, from the cold, wet, mossy rock bank, a giant black shadow appeared. It was the grizzly bear, the master predator of this river. It stood firmly on its hind legs, its body covered in thick, wet fur, its eyes intently watching the boiling water. Water splashed into its face, but the bear remained motionless, waiting for the right moment. And then, the bear's hunt began. It bit hard, water and blood mixed together, flowing down through its snout. The bear took a few steps back, chewing slowly, his eyes still fixed on the waterfall, where hundreds of others continued to swim upstream as if nothing could stop them. At the foot of the waterfall, other salmon still jumped up, wave after wave, the red light covering the water surface. A few made it through, falling into the peaceful waters above, survivors in the storm of survival. The afternoon sun cast a soft golden light on the now calmer river. Foam drifted lazily, carrying a faint red streak of diluted blood, traces of the fierce battle just past. The surviving salmon continued to swim slowly upstream, their bodies torn, their scales peeling, but their eyes still shining brightly in the cold water. The current weakened. The sound of the waterfall faded away behind. Before them was the shallow water, the riverbed, strewn with fine pebbles sparkling in the sunset. This was the beginning and the end. The female salmon uses her tail to gently flick her head, digging a nest in the gravel, each movement slow but instinctive. The thin current washes away the tiny grains of sand, revealing a shallow circular hollow that will cradle the new generation. The male approaches, his body crimson, his jaw curved, his body rough and tired from the long journey. They wrap around each other, gently rotating in the cold water. Then, at the same time the female lays eggs, the male releases sperm to cover them. A small, opaque cloud spreads in the clear water, like the breath of new life. Everything becomes quiet, only the sound of water trickling and the shimmering light through the river surface. The female salmon stops, her body shivering slightly, then lets herself lie still among the pebbles. The male also drifts gently beside her, his body gradually darkening, his eyes dimming. The water flows by, gently, carrying the story of sacrifice and rebirth. A few weeks later, those eggs will hatch. The tiny young will drift with the current, away from this place, towards the vast ocean. Then a few years from now, they will return to this same river, this same stretch of water, to continue the endless ritual of their ancestors. In their last breath, the salmon do not lose. They complete their mission. Their death is the seed of life for the new generation, and the river, stained with blood, still flows as a testament to the eternal cycle of nature. Far to the north, where the snow covers the horizon, the ground seems to no longer distinguish between land and sky. The cold wind cuts through the skin, blowing the snowdrifts into a hazy whirlwind. In that space, a giant moving stream is flowing slowly. The North American caribou herd begins its great migration journey. More than 200,000 individuals move together, creating a mobile sea of life that stretches to the horizon. The footsteps trample on the snow, leaving thousands of imprints like the heartbeats of nature in the ice. They migrate in cycles, thousands of kilometers each year, from the southern taiga forest up to the Arctic tundra in the north, where the light never goes out during the summer. Their goal is to find new pastures to breed. There, when the ice melts, the first young grasses sprout, a precious source of nutrition for the newborn calves. The reindeer's journey is a race against time and nature. The snow is blown into columns of dust, covering the reindeer herd moving across the vast tundra. In the distance, faint white shadows appear. At first, there are just a few small movements in the snow mist. Then, gradually, a pack of wolves. Their pure white fur makes them almost blend into the snow. Only their golden eyes shine brightly in the cold wind. They move low, fast, silent, as the invisible winds gradually surround the reindeer herd. In a moment, they rush forward. Precise bites, blood red on the white snow, a single streak of color in the frozen world. The reindeer herd continues moving in the distance, not stopping, not looking back. Because in nature, life cannot wait for loss. The strong continue to move to maintain the flow of the species. In this frozen land, there are no cruel people, only creatures loyal to their instincts. The migration continues, and the cycle of survival begins once again. Winter comes from the north. Cold winds whip across the grasslands, carrying white snowdrifts that blur the space. The sky is gray, the ground is frozen, and the only sound left is the howling wind echoing across the prairie. In the midst of this desolate scene, the herd of North American bison begins to move. From afar, the ground shakes with heavy beats. Huge masses of muscle move silently, their breaths coming out in streams of white smoke. Each one is covered in thick, shaggy fur. Its shoulders are like natural shields, the only armor against the harsh cold of the frozen land. The herd of bison moves slowly but never stops. They follow the scent of snow-covered grass, traveling dozens of kilometers a day, crossing frozen rivers and white-covered fields. Ahead, a few older herd leaders, leading the way, knew the way well, because this journey had been repeated for thousands of years, following the rhythm of the seasons and the instinct of survival. When the snow fell heavily, the bison used their heads and shoulders to butt the ground, plowing the ice to reveal patches of dry grass underneath. The sound of the ice cracking echoed, mixed with the heavy breathing of the giant herd. Amid the snowstorm, they continued to move south, where open grasslands and abundant food sources awaited. Days later, the ice began to thin. Patches of land were exposed under the weak sunlight of late winter. The bison finally reached warmer grasslands, where the pregnant females would stop, preparing for the moment of birth. In the quiet space, amid the lingering cold of winter, the first life breathed. The small, wet-haired calves shivered in the cold wind, but still tried to stand up on their slender legs. Around them, the bison herd formed a circle, their huge bodies blocking the wind, protecting their calves from predators lurking in the distant darkness. The dawn light shone down on the grassland, illuminating the frost-covered bodies of the bison. Their breathing mingled with the wind, creating a solemn song of new life in the cold season. Time passed quickly. The wind began to change direction. In the gray sky, migratory birds flew in a V formation, signaling the coming of a new winter. Instincts arose. The herd began their journey back north, where the ancient snow forest still awaited. The way back was familiar, but full of danger. Thin ice, the first snowstorm of the season, and eyes lurking behind the cold white curtain. As the cold gradually swallowed the steppe, the shadow of the snow forest appeared on the horizon, high, low, and quiet. The herd moved slowly, its breath turning into thick white smoke in the air. Everything seemed to be silent, only the sound of heavy footsteps on the hard snow. But in the distance, in the thick fog, something was moving too. White shadows loomed, silent and agile, the northern wolves. They had been watching from afar, patient as shadows. Then suddenly, the white shadows rushed out like living arrows. In the midst of the fierce battle, the bison fell, becoming the price of sacrifice for the herd to be saved. In the distance, the herd of bison continued to move. Their footsteps were heavy, but they did not stop. Because in this world, life does not allow for even a moment to stop. Life is never truly peaceful. When the birthing season ends, the hunting season opens again. And just like that, between the white snow and the red blood, this planet continues to rotate with a never-ending breath of life and death. In every corner of the planet, from the frigid oceans to the scorching grasslands, from the top of the permafrost to the deep, humid forests, the race for survival continues. What do you think makes species migrate thousands of kilometers and always find their way back to where they were born? Leave a comment below the video. And don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series. Dawn covers the plains in a soft light, but that peace is only a fragile cover before the chaos that is waiting to explode. As the earth and sky revive, the battle for life becomes more brutal than ever. The wildebeest migration. From rebirth to death trap. The Okavango dawn after the first rains of the season spreads out like a damp silken sheet. Pale blue light falls on the newly grown grasses, still full of water, making the plains glow from within. The sodden ground forms thin streams that weave through the mudflats that have not yet dried. The air is filled with the smell of wet soil and the fresh breath of plants that have just woken up after months of thirst. The land that was once cracked by drought now seems to be revived. Temporary lakes appear again, attracting flocks of birds and antelopes from afar. A gentle wind blew, causing the rain clouds to drift slowly across the clear sky, as if the entire forest were breathing a long sigh after a period of agony. And it was this revival that was the first call. From the horizon, large dust rolls up in long, winding strips. The sound of footsteps, deep, thick, and even, began to echo like distant drums. A huge black stream appeared in the sea of green grass, reviving the wildebeest herd. They appeared not by chance, but by the ancient law of life. During the dry season, the wildebeest had to leave the Okavango, seeking distant lands in search of grass and water. But when the first rains fell on the plains, an invisible signal was immediately sent. The smell of fresh grass, the humidity in the wind, and the steam rising from the ground became unmistakable signs for this species' migratory instinct. The leaders sensed the change first through the vibrations of the ground under their hooves and the changes in the air. They begin to move, and the herd immediately follows, thousands of individuals, forming an endless stream, returning to the place where food, water, and life once were. For the wildebeest, the Okavango, after the rains, is the target, the opportunity, but also the greatest risk. Here is the fresh grass, the source of energy they need after a long journey. Here is the water, which determines the survival of the herd. And also here, the predator has smelled the scent of that return. But the instinct to migrate has been ingrained in their blood for millions of years, and nothing can stop them. When the Okavango revives, the wildebeest have no choice but to return. Thousands of footsteps echo on the wet ground, creating the characteristic sound of the Great Migration, the sound of life returning to the once burned land. That's why they're here, in this place, at this time. Because the Okavango's life cycle has opened up again. The leaders stop, head up, ears swiveling. They know this place well. The Chobe River, the silent killer of the Okavango. The Chobe, which had been dry for months, is now full after the first rains. And when the water returns, so too is its ruler, the Nile crocodile. Beneath the dark brown surface, long shadows drift silently, their backs rising and falling like black spears through the current. No sound, no ripple, just the eerie silence of the continent's most perfect ambushers. This is the first hurdle for the wildebeest herd. And also their deathbed. If they don't get past it, they'll be trapped between the parched desert behind them and the thirsty land ahead. No grass. No water. No choice. The leader of the herd walks to the water's edge. It smells the wind, the mud, the smell of death. But in the end, it must choose either to overcome or to die slowly in the drought. Behind, the herd moved vigorously. Deep, tense roars rang out. The calves trembled, hiding between their mother's shoulders. The earth beneath the feet of thousands of individuals reverberated in heavy waves like the beat of war drums. A long roar rang out. Then the current exploded. The herd of wildebeest plunged into the water. Mud flew up. The turbid water broke into high columns. The older ones led the way, creating a strong vortex, breaking the water's momentum. With each step, the mud beneath their feet was sucked in, pulling them back down. Then the giant jaws shot out of the water. A strong turn at the bottom of the river. the prey disappeared. But the herd could not stop. To stop would mean death. After a few minutes of chaos, the first ones reached the other bank. The ground was soft and slippery, but it was living soil, no longer dead water. One by one, the herd of wildebeest climbed up. Their bodies trembled. Mud stuck heavily to their bodies, their breathing ragged. Some bore long gashes on their legs, on their horns, or on their bellies, the deep teeth marks of crocodiles. But they had made it through. Roars echoed across the plains, not of victory, but of those who had just escaped the jaws of death. The Chobe River returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. But a faint red streak still flowed on the surface of the water. The herd of wildebeest did not look back. They only knew one thing: the first pass had been passed, but the journey of survival was much longer. After crossing the Chobe River, the plains opened up before them. The herd of wildebeest was like a green carpet, still covered with moisture. The sun rose higher, the ground gradually warming, dispelling the cold, damp feeling that clung to their wet fur. There was no more roaring of water, the hissing of crocodiles, or the heart-rending screams of calves being dragged down. There was only the sound of a gentle wind blowing across the grass and the herd's heavy breathing that was gradually calming down. Despite knowing that danger was always lurking, the wildebeest herd was forced to give itself a short break, a break for exhausted creatures after death's door. The adults bent down, biting into the first tufts of young grass after months of drought. In the middle of the herd, a heavily pregnant cow stopped. She was breathing heavily, her belly contracting with each beat. The other females immediately gathered around, forming an instinctive circle to protect the creatures that had not yet been born, but were being protected by the herd. The wind blew, making the grass tremble slightly, and in that natural rhythm, a baby was born. It fell onto the damp grass, weak and trembling. Just a few seconds later, its mother bent down to lick the mud and blood off its body, encouraging it to stand up. Its forelegs, as thin as sticks, were fumbling to find support. But like many generations before, instinct is stronger than the first weakness. The baby can stand. A soft roar from the surrounding females is not loud, not panic, but like a welcome to a new member of the great journey. Farther away, the babies run and jump gently in the grass, forgetting the moment of death just a few steps away. Some young males start to butt each other with their soft horns, practicing for the real fights when they grow up. But the Okavango does not allow peace for too long. Vultures still circle in the sky. The wind from the east still carries the fishy smell of the hunter lurking nearby. But in this moment, the wildebeest herd still allows itself to live, allows the babies to grow, allows new individuals to be born. The cycle of survival of the Okavango always revolves with blood and danger. But there are also gentle moments like this, moments to temporarily forget the hunter hiding in the grass. And it is in those rare moments of silence that the wildebeest herd regains the strength to continue their journey forward. The next morning in the Okavango opened with a thin mist covering the plains. The early morning sunlight filtered through the mist, creating white columns of light that seemed to hang in the sky. The wildebeest herd had recovered somewhat from the death door of the Chobe River. Life seemed to have returned. But the Okavango was never completely peaceful for long. A group of grazing herds suddenly raised their heads in unison. Their ears turned slightly in the direction of the wind. The change did not create a loud noise, but it was enough for the herd to realize that something was different. Amid the shoulder-high grass, a pair of golden eyes opened slightly. The long, graceful body of the predator crouched low to the ground, almost disappearing into the burnt grass. Its pale yellow fur shook slightly with its breathing, each muscle under its skin moving slowly but surely, like an underground stream gathering strength. He had been watching the herd since yesterday afternoon, observing how they rested, moved, and the small gaps they made when they began to relax their guard. Behind him, 3 other lionesses were also crawling low, moving like spears sliding in the wind. No hissing, no roaring, just the sound of grass being split as their pale yellow fur brushed past. They were waiting for the right moment when the wildebeest herd would let down their guard. And that moment was slowly coming. A wildebeest feeding eagerly ran a few dozen meters away from the herd. The gap was small, but enough to turn into a dead end. The herd had not yet reacted. But the lion had been waiting for this moment all morning. In the bushes, the largest lioness crouched down once more. Her muscles were as tense as a bowstring ready to fire. Then suddenly, the giant golden figure rushed out of the grass. A heavy thud rang out as her huge body fell to the grass. The lions rushed in like a golden whirlwind. The herd stood still, not running away. They watched, in silence, in haunting, in the cruel recognition of nature. There was no cry of pain. No sound of mourning. Only silence, the silence of a herd that had witnessed the price of survival. A gentle wind blew. The grass swayed. The herd of wildebeest continued to move towards the horizon, leaving behind the dead river and the traces of the bloody ambush. No one looked back, because in the Okavango, life is only for those who know how to move forward. The circle of survival does not stop, and neither does the journey of the wildebeest. Because on this plain, there is never only one hunter. What is waiting on the horizon? Stay tuned for the next part. And don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe so you don't miss the next wildlife survival series.